Howdy, y'all, and welcome back. Episode 3. We're talking about some differences between long guns and handguns. And generally, when we talk about long guns, we mean rifles or shotguns. And when we talk about handguns, we mean revolvers or semi automatic pistols. And over again in the world of firearms, we're going to talk about trade offs. So, for instance, when you talk about handgun calibers, lots of people want power. We want all the power. We want a powerful handgun. Well, if you've ever shot a powerful handgun, you know that it's kind of miserable. And so we want a caliber that's powerful enough to be effective, but unpowerful enough to be able to get several shots off quickly in a row. That's why 9mm is so popular, is it's kind of right in the middle. It's meeting the best of both worlds. So when we talk about our choice for a first firearm, I think this generally sorts itself out. Like if you're wanting to get into dove hunting, you probably know what direction you're going, right? Or if you're interested in concealed carry, then you probably know. Where it gets a little trickier is home defense, because over the last 10, 15 years, more and more people are recommending that folks get an AR-15 for home defense. So then it's like, well, handgun or AR, what do I do? So before we get into all that, let's talk about a couple of terms that will come up over and over again when you're comparing different guns. And the first one is sight radius. So when we talk about sight radius, we're talking about the distance between the front sight of the gun and the rear sight of the gun, which on this Glock 43X is about like that, versus on, say, this lever action rifle, rear sight, front sight, much longer. The longer the sight radius is, the more stable it will be when minor, like little tiny inputs of movement are put into the gun, or they're just more stable. Also, with long guns, you're going to have 4 points of contact. You've got 1, 2, 3 is your shoulder, 4 is your cheek weld, and you're good and locked in with a nice long sight radius. And it's a very stable shooting platform. Versus with a handgun, you're using either 2 hands or maybe even 1 hand with a much shorter sight radius, meaning variations in movement going like that are going to throw your shots off much farther. Shorter barrel, shorter sight radius. A lot of that can be negated with modern optics. So holographic optic or a red dot optic or a low power variable optic on a rifle is going to sort of make the whole sight radius thing not as much of a thing. And you can get a similar red dot optic on a handgun, again, somewhat negating the length of barrel. The dot doesn't care if this is a 5-inch barrel or a 4-inch barrel. You just use the dot and put it over the target. So some of that, but a lot of folks, especially if you're brand new, you might want to start with learning to shoot on traditional iron sights. I am of the opinion that if you want to start square, like day one, with a red dot, I can live with that. There is a lot of value in knowing how to use iron sights properly, because you may someday find yourself in a situation where you need or want to shoot a handgun or rifle that doesn't have an optic on it, and it would be nice to know how to do that using the iron sights, right? But I have no problem if a brand new gun owner wants to get right into using a dot. That's fine, like whatever. So, for home defense, do you want to go with the AR-15 or do you want to go with a handgun? This one is a little tricky. So it can depend somewhat on your home. So if you live on some property, if you're out in the sticks, I can definitely see the advantages of having an AR or maybe even a lever action rifle. Maybe for that first one, right? However, I think people need to really, really contemplate the legality of using a rifle at any kind of distance, even if it's your own property, and then trying to claim self-defense. So if you're at what we typically think of as rifle distance and you shoot someone on your property, it may not go well for you in court. And that could then negate a lot of the advantages of the rifle in the first place. A lot of the reason people recommend rifles for home defense is that they are just much more powerful than a handgun. And I get that. But inside of a home, they are also deafeningly loud. Handguns are kind of too, but rifles are just that much louder in a home and maybe kind of overkill. I'm not even going to go into the whole topic of over-penetration, and that's a whole different rabbit hole, but just practically speaking, is there really a big advantage of moving through your house looking for a bad guy with a rifle versus a handgun? Generally, we're going to recommend you get your family members in a safe spot in the house and call 911. So this idea that you're going to be, John Wicking through your house looking for the bad guy is that's dicey. So, but I mean, I have both. So I understand the argument for using a long gun for home defense, or even a shotgun for home defense. I get it. But going back to, this is your first, maybe your only gun ever. For me, the big advantage of a handgun over a long gun is being able to do that. Even if you have no intentions of ever getting a concealed carry license or concealed carrying in your daily life, it's having the ability to do it should the need arise. Some type of civil unrest or things in society have gone very, very badly and you only own one gun. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to discreetly have that gun on you as you're moving through the world trying to get to somewhere or away from somewhere? And that is very, very difficult to do discreetly with one of these. So although these have a ton of advantages, if it's going to be an either or for me, if I could only have one, I would rather it be a handgun, probably more something like this, that I can put on my body and then also have free hands to be able to carry some water or some supplies or a child and look less threatening to people around me. And also, I'm not a target. I don't look like I've got this on me that somebody might want to take from me. So, element of surprise, there's a lot to be said for that in that context. Also, if you can get good at shooting handguns, then the first time you go to shoot a rifle, it's going to feel like cheat mode. It's going to be easy. Other way around, you could shoot a lot of long guns, rifles, shotguns, and go to the range, put a handgun in your hands, and be awful because it's very different and it's much more challenging. So if you're brand new into this, I'm a big fan of get a handgun, and I generally, we'll talk about this more in future videos, but I'm really a big fan of probably something just like this, semi-automatic, compact, not too small, not too big, future videos, but get yourself a handgun, get some training, take some classes, do a lot of dry practice at home, get very, very familiar with it, get good with a handgun. Everything after that gets easier. So that's my pro tip of the day. Until next time, be easy, y'all.